Well, this is the last episode I'll share with you, and I've been thinking for a while about what I would want to say to you. There are some things I'm going to wait to say until we have our celebration Sunday on July 26th. I hope you'll be here for that in person, because I'm going to take that opportunity to thank you for how you've changed my family and me for the better. And I'm going to explain why I am certain your best days are ahead of you. I'm so excited to see what the future holds. I can't imagine what y'all will do now that you're getting a really good lead pastor. But figuring out what I wanted to speak about to you right now wasn't that hard. Matter of fact, if you've been around here a while, you can probably guess. There is one message that I have delivered over and over and over again since the year we began, because it is so core to who we want to be as a church, and I never want us to forget it. And I know Jared believes in it too, so it's not the last time you're going to hear it, but it may be the last time I get to share it with you. So if you are not a Jesus follower or you're just tuning in, just know this. What we're about to talk about is the thing that makes this church so unique. It's what makes these people who are part of this movement different and distinct in a really, really good way. And none of that's going to change when I'm no longer the lead pastor, because I am not the reason this church is what it is. The people who make up this church, well, you're the reason. 21 years ago, 7 of us started Journey not because Murray needed another church. There were over 100 churches in Cowley County alone. But what we did believe is that this area needed a different kind of church. And we believed that because we all had friends who didn't go to church, and when we asked them why, well, you know what they said? They would say, I used to go, but it wasn't helpful at all. I tried that once. None of it made any sense. I couldn't connect with anybody. And they talked about stuff I couldn't even understand. And when I walked in that one time, it felt like I was crashing somebody else's family reunion. There seemed to be rules to follow, and I need to already believe certain things and act a certain way to belong. So the thing we kept hearing over and over was church is just too uncomfortable. It's obviously not for me. Church is for church people, and I'm not a church person. But here's the problem. If church is just for church people, then Christianity is for church people. And if Christianity is just for church people, well, that means Jesus is just for church people. But when you read the accounts of Jesus' life, there is nothing that could be further from the truth. People who were not church people, people who were nothing like Jesus, well, they loved to be around Jesus, and he loved being around them back. Matter of fact, somehow along the way, in spite of that, the church has messed this up. We've messed it up so bad that people don't think Jesus is for everybody anymore. Let me explain it this way. A church designed for church people only is kind of like, if you could picture this in your mind, like a ladder missing all the bottom rungs. So people come to church and they look up and they go, how did y'all get up there at the top of the ladder? You seem to know the whole Bible. You seem to understand all the terminology. You talk about knowing God. Glad you're so smart. Glad you're so good. Glad you're so disciplined. I would love to know God that way. I'd love to be confident he's with me and for me and he's forgiven me. But when I walk into church, I don't even know how to get started, and all the bottom rungs are missing. So obviously, as much as I wish I could connect with God personally, it's not possible for me. See, that's one of the biggest problems in the wider church today, that they're only designed for people who are insiders, people who are already in. Now, here's what's interesting. This is not a new problem. It started as soon as Jesus left the earth, because there's this tendency in all of us to complicate God and to make things so difficult that it keeps people out. Here's how the early Jesus followers fell into this trap. As we talked about this summer, most of the original Christians, they were Jewish, and when they began following Jesus, they were very slow to let go of their Judaism. They mixed all their old rules with the new thing Jesus came to do. So if you weren't Jewish and you wanted to become a Christian, well, it was really complicated, because the Jews basically said, you got to follow all of our rules. You got to become a Jew if you're going to be a Jesus follower. Meanwhile, there's a guy named Paul who, along with his friend Barnabas, started going to places where there were non-Jewish people like most of us. And they started telling those people about Jesus. They saw thousands of those people start following Jesus. So word eventually gets back to Jerusalem, this is happening, and it really bothered the Jewish Christians. So they sent people out to these places Paul had been to say, hey, not so fast. It's not enough that you believe in Jesus. You got to follow all of our Jewish customs. And you can imagine that created a lot of conflict and tension, to the point that about 15 years after the resurrection of Jesus, the church leaders there in Jerusalem have a meeting to debate and resolve the problem. And I want to show you what they said. And if you're here and you're not a Jesus follower, you will love this, because it's all about being for you. Here's what Acts 15 tells us. When they came to Jerusalem, they were welcomed by the church and the apostles and the elders, to whom they reported everything God had done through them. Then some of the believers who belonged to the party of the Pharisees stood up. And they said, and before I go any further, I just want you to realize how interesting this is. The Pharisees are sitting there listening to Paul and Barnabas. The Pharisees are the religious leaders who are responsible for having Jesus crucified. And now some of them are following Jesus. How did that happen? Not because of what Jesus taught, but because they killed him and then they saw him alive. So many of them are now believers, but they can't stop mixing Judaism with Jesus. So here's what they say. They say, no, the Gentiles must be circumcised and required to keep the law of Moses. It's great that they believe in Jesus. It's great they want to join the club, but not so fast. They've got to be willing to keep all of our laws if they're going to be part of our team. This was like ripping the bottom rungs off the ladder. Now it's not about accepting God's grace and forgiveness anymore. They are trying to make it way more complicated than that. And that's when in this meeting, Peter stands up. And I'm not going to read it, but over the next few verses, he basically says, listen, Jesus made this message available to everybody. You guys are trying to complicate it by putting all these requirements on people that we can't even meet as Jewish people. But the Jesus-following Pharisees keep arguing about this with Paul and Barnabas and Peter until finally, James stands up. Now, for those of you who don't know, James was the brother of Jesus. So you can imagine he's got some serious clout. James didn't come to faith in Jesus. He didn't believe Jesus was who he claimed to be until after the resurrection. But now he's a leader of the church in Jerusalem. So he listens to everybody. He finally stands up and he makes the final decision. And the statement he makes has been the heartbeat of this church for the last 21 years. And I am confident you will make sure it continues to be the heartbeat here for the next 21 years. Listen to this straight from the words, the mouth of Jesus' brother. He says, "It is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God." He says, these non-Jewish people, they're trying to follow Jesus. Why are we making it difficult for them? God made it easy for everybody. Why would we rip out the bottom rungs on the ladder and complicate it? And to the credit of all the people in the room, including those Pharisees, they listened. Those first believers quit telling people they had to be Jews to be Christians, and they began declaring the message Jesus taught that everybody can have a relationship with God by grace through faith and trust in him. But you know what? It wasn't 100 years later, and this has already crept back in. The church had already made it complicated again. And I don't care what denomination you pick, you're going to find it's still complicated in most churches today. So, a few years ago when we started Journey, we started with a really clear passion. We decided we were going to put all the bottom rungs back on the ladder. Because you know what we believe? We believe that Jesus didn't just come for religious people. Jesus came for everybody. We don't think the church is for church people. We think the church is for everybody because everybody needs to be forgiven. I do. Any of you not need to be forgiven? We all need that. Everybody's going to face a crisis in life. Is going to want to know God really does care about them. And I bet that 90% of us would love to be able to pick up a Bible and it makes sense to us. So we just decided a long time ago, if it kills us, if we have to recreate and restart over and over, by God's grace, we're going to create a church where all the rungs are on the ladder. And where the most biblically illiterate or never been to church or had a bad church experience person can show up here and go, okay, I can't find Ephesians, but I do understand what they're talking about. I don't know if I believe everything yet, but I got in a starting point group. They were open to all my questions, and I began to understand some things. And my kids haven't been in church before, but I took them to those kids' environments or those student environments, and they came home telling me what they had learned. So I'm at the bottom. I'm on the first few rungs, but I feel like there's hope for me. I feel like I can grow too, not just the people who are high up on the ladder. So that's why we do what we do. It's why if you consider this your church home, I'm going to ask you to keep taking ownership of making sure Journey is that kind of place. Because this isn't a cruise ship designed for your comfort. It's a rescue ship designed to help church people and unchurched people experience God personally at work in their lives. So one more time, if you consider Journey your home, I want to challenge you to do 4 things. First, I'm asking you to invite, because one invitation could change everything for somebody. How else will the 70% of people in our communities who aren't in church know that there is a church designed for them if you don't tell them? How will they know God loves them if you don't show them? God's put some people in your life that you can point to Him if you will just take the time to ask, hey, would you like to come to church with me sometime? So I want to challenge you to invite them to come in August. Jared has an incredible series of messages planned. So why not just make this the biggest and best August that Journey's ever had? Second, I'm going to ask you to serve if you're not serving. Because we want all the bottom rungs on the ladder staffed with people who are here to help children who don't understand, and students who have questions, and adults who haven't quite figured it out yet. Do not just settle for coming here and consuming. Sitting in a seat. You don't like people who just take all the time. Don't be one of those people. Open up our app. Sign up for a Serve Now. We'll show you opportunities where you can serve. You can explore what you like. You can find your place. Listen, the people who will walk in here for the first time over the next few months, they need to experience you there serving and loving them. So invest a little bit of your time, and God just might use it to influence some of these people for a lifetime. Then third, I'm asking you to give or to keep giving. And not just give sporadically, not just financially give spontaneously, not just when Jared stands up here and says, hey, we're trying to help kids get school supplies. All of that's good. But if you call this your church, I'm asking you to do what Jen and I have done for 21 years. Become a priority giver. Decide the first thing you're going to do with every paycheck is give to help others. Just set it up to be automatic and recurring. And if you give here already, I want to challenge you, if you're not, to become a percentage giver. Some of you picked an amount at some point in the past, you set it, and you've been giving it regularly, which we're very grateful for, but you never changed it. You've never reevaluated it. It's time for you to pick a percentage, to make that your standard of giving. And then those of you who do all of that, let me just ask you to consider being a progressive giver. When's the last time you asked God if He wants you to increase the percentage you give? Listen, the reason I'm bringing this up is because your generosity will change people's eternities. If I'm being transparent, when a founding pastor hands leadership off to the next person, there's usually a dip in attendance and giving. That's normal. But that better not happen here, because you're not normal. And this is not about me. It is about the mission that we've been on together. And you know you don't want to be a normal church anyway. You're the best church in the world. So just invite more, attend more, give more, and keep moving the mission forward. Because listen, the church was never intended to be just for church people. The church is for everybody, because everybody matters to God, and everybody's going to spend forever somewhere. Now, if you're not a church person or a Jesus follower and you've watched this entire thing, I hope you see that we care enough about you, and we believe this will make such a difference in your life that we are willing to do whatever it takes to help you experience God's grace. So as we prepare for this next chapter in the extraordinary story God's writing here, with all the opportunities that you're going to have to make an impact regionally, nationally, and internationally, just don't miss them. Just don't blow them. Will you help keep this place free of all the junk that makes it difficult for people to come and connect with their Heavenly Father? Will you invite, serve, give, and connect? Because somebody made it easy for you to connect with God, and we owe that to the next generation. Jesus isn't just for the people way up there. He's for the people starting way down here too. He's for everybody. So let's keep being for everybody ourselves.